So this is a tough one. Let's bring in our legal analyst guest, attorney Randolph Rice, and talk about it. Randolph, it's early in the case, but I'm sure you still have some opinions. Tell us what you're thinking at this point, please.
Well, the defense obviously has shown that they intend to introduce this self-defense argument, but obviously it's going to be very difficult because of some of the actions that the defendant took after the fact, after he shot allegedly the mother of his children. So that's really what the state is hammering on with this witness, the father, right now, is getting some of those details out that are going to help them counter that self-defense argument.
Right, and not an easy position for dad to be in here. What about the action of this guy? You know, he's in the disagreement with the mother of his kids, and there are options, right? If you think your kids are going to be kidnapped, you know, you can call police, you could, maybe grab a neighbor's help. You can do all sorts of things to try to, if you really felt like time was of the essence. Here he goes to the gun. That's a pretty bad fact, in my view, to get around if you're on the defense side. What do you think, Randolph?
Oh, horrible fact, because if he's going to argue that this is self-defense of others, meaning self-defense of the children, that's a very long and difficult road to sort of make this connection between the two, because you have to almost say that these kids were in imminent bodily danger or harm that their mother was posing to them, and that was the action that he took. It just doesn't make any sense. Yeah,
you hit the nail right on the head, Randolph. When you really dig in and think about it, it's defense of others, as you said, which falls under that nice umbrella of the self-defense laws, but to your point, what was dangerous at that point in time? The kids are with their mother, mom and dad are having the argument, mom and dad are having the issues. How did it get, from point A to point B? You're right, he's got a high burden of production here. On that point, do you think he's got to testify, Randolph?
Yeah, this kind of feels a little bit like a battered spouse syndrome sort of defense, because there was this long period of time of fear that the father may try to argue, or the defense is going to argue that this is sort of built up, these worries, these fears that mom was going to take these kids. But again, imminent, that's the word that we're focused on here, imminent danger. And if it's not imminent, it's really hard to argue that defense of others.
Yeah, most definitely. Randolph, let's hit a break. Stand by kindly for us, please. We'll ask you more questions soon. When we come back, we'll give it. They're taking a sidebar, so let's do our own sidebar with our legal analyst guest, attorney Randolph Rice. He's in private practice now, used to serve as a prosecutor. All right, Randolph, let's talk a little bit about this case and kind of take a step back and kind of pick up the conversation where we left off. You and I were talking about this is really a defense of others kind of case. It's not so much that he's saying that wife was attacking me, but that, wife was going to kidnap the kids and I had to rescue the kids, so I had to therefore shoot the wife. If you're prosecuting this one, what are some of the things you're hoping to make clear to the jury while you get the chance with your various witnesses before resting the case in chief?
Imminent harm. That is the key word in this case. Is did he believe that his children, in particular the one that's in the mother's lap at the time of the shooting, and then obviously he takes her off the lap, is she in imminent harm of any type of danger? Or imminent harm in his mind, I guess, that she was going to be kidnapped, in this crazy theory that the defense put forward in their opening statements. But it's imminent harm, and that's what they have to really focus on.
Yeah, definitely. And so here it's kind of ironic. He's saying that, my fear was the kids were going to be kidnapped by their mother, so I had to shoot their mother. But then the Amber Alert's issued because of him, because he takes the kids. Then the next day, and she's found with a single gunshot wound to her head. When we look at means, this guy, he's a Marine, right? I'm sure he could have had another means of restraining her if he really felt like the kids were in danger. Randolph, do you explore that as a prosecutor?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's so many conflicting arguments here that the defense is sort of positioning in this case, which makes it why it's so difficult for them to argue this case on his behalf. He's a Marine, like you just said. He obviously has training. He has other ways to defend himself or protect other individuals. And to shoot somebody just seems to be the last resource, or the last, rather, option in his bag of tools that he could use with his type of training.
Definitely. You know, I'm picturing this. They're in the house, so this starts as a domestic. This is domestic violence. I mean, that's what this is. We're in Domestic Violence Awareness Month, as you know, Randolph, the month of October. They're in the house. You know, a far less lethal means could have been to lock the door, call police, stand in front of the door and say, okay, wait, we're going to call police to sort this thing out because I don't think you should be allowed to take the kids. That would be a reasonable way to handle this. Going to lethal force, I just think it's such a jump when, like you said, these kids don't appear to be in any imminent harm. They're with their mom, the woman who birthed them. I think it's a real stretch. I wonder if there's something. I would love to know this guy's background. Wouldn't you, Randolph? I would love to know if there's something in his background preventing a plea, perhaps, because I think a case like this is ripe for a plea. What do you say?
Oh, I agree. And, you know, you mentioned one of the most important words just a moment ago is reasonable. Reasonable is what the jury's going to be looking at. The reasonableness of his actions. Was he acting reasonable that day? And apparently he was not, because he used a gun to kill the mother of his children, which is not reasonable. So the jurors are going to see that, and I think they're going to come to a conclusion that this was just not a self-defense of others type of case.
I think so too, Randolph. I think this may be a quick verdict. At least that's where I am on the start of day number 2. I don't think it's looking good for this defendant at all. So glad you're here, Randolph. Stand by, please. We'll hit a break. When we come back, we're going to go back in. Sidebar is over. This is Court TV Live.